Граѓанскиот сектор, но и државните институции се најдоа погодени од големата промена која се случува во Соединетите Американски држави. Откако американскиот председател ги стопираше парите за одржлив развој наменети за неразвиени земји, се наметнува прашањето дали и некои европски држави ќе го следат неговиот пример. Добре дојдовте во уште еден лавиринт, јас сум Кристина Атовска. За неразвиените или помалку развиените земји, финансиската поддршка која доаѓа од меѓународниот фактор е исклучително важна. По големите промени кои се случуваат во Соединетите Американски држави, се наметнува прашањето дали и дел од европските држави ќе го променат курсот. Конкретно денеска ќе разговараме за тоа дали Германија ќе продолжи со својата политика да помага на, како што кажав, помалку развиените држави. За таа цел го повикав директорот на Германската организација за меѓународна соработка ГИС, Давид Оберхубер. Mr. Oberhuber, thank you very much for accepting this invitation and for coming to our studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
As I mentioned, a lot of changes happened in the United States. Nobody expected something like this. And the International Development Cooperation has been an important topic here, and especially important after these events. Many projects didn't start at all or were terminated in the middle. So this has created a significant gap, especially in the civil sector. So is this something that will affect your work here in North Macedonia, and how is Germany positioning itself in this regard?
We are fortunately directly not affected by this, because we are not implementing US financed programs, but many of our partners are affected, and it is obvious that you have to see what is coming. We don't know yet how it will look like in the next months and in the years to come exactly. But what is primarily affecting us is this political debate around development cooperation. And I think we have to make clear what this is about. And this is, I think, a little bit the difficulty for us in the field of development cooperation, that we need to make clear why we are doing that. It is part of the soft power approach of Germany. It is that Germany is partnering with other countries to create change into a certain direction together. And that is, I think, very important to understand. Yes, it is in the interest of Germany that what we are doing. It is not short-sighted business interests of specific German companies. It is about long-term cooperation, and I think especially the Western Balkans are a very good example. This is a region which is of specific importance for Germany. Therefore, Germany engages here in the region and is creating the ideas in which direction we would like this region to develop. But then we are, and that's our job, we are then getting into contact with our partners, agreeing on the direction where we are going. It is not that Germany imposes certain directions. It is that we are actually negotiating with the partners and then finding an agreement. We are not working without any agreement with our partners in which direction we are implementing.
And you mentioned that some of your partners are affected. Will that affect your cooperation with them?
We have to see. It is behind development cooperation, there is also a certain bureaucracy. There are contracts, there are mandates, so we cannot immediately react on with immediate effect. We are trying to react directly with the partners where we are already having relations to, but there will be for sure, and there are discussions going on also with our political level to think in which direction, for example, civil society can be supported more intensively and so on, but this is not yet decided. That is a little bit too short now to give you already answers here.
GIS is working with North Macedonia since 90s, but has office in Skopje since 2008, if I'm not wrong. And GIS has been quite active in the past few years here in North Macedonia. We've seen plenty of activities on different topics and with different stakeholders. So could you provide a brief overview of GIS work? In which thematic areas do you cover, and who are your main partners? Just to make a little bit more clear to our viewers, the ones who still don't know about your work.
We are working since independence of North Macedonia. We are working with Macedonian authorities. This is a close cooperation. Actually, the office we established already quite soon, immediately. And there are constantly projects since then. At the moment we have three main areas. One is functioning state authorities and inclusive society. The second one is climate change, energy transition, just energy transition. And the third area is economic development, also in the framework of EU integration. And everything what we are doing is oriented at North Macedonia becoming an EU member. It is the clear understanding of Germany that the future of North Macedonia is in the European Union. So all our projects are actually going into that direction. If we are talking, for example, of functioning state authorities, we are at the moment working with the Ministry of European Affairs to set up a functioning monitoring system for the reform agenda. The government obviously has a big program which they have to implement. There are steps to be taken, there are goals to be achieved, and we have to set up a functioning structure for that. Our main orientation is also here in the country on the local level. For example, municipalities are the direct contact with the citizens, and we want to have the municipalities function in delivering services to the communities. So, for example, that the water management is improved, and that also the citizen can relatively easy pay for their water services from the municipality. And one other aspect, for example, municipalities also have a role in social inclusion. So they have to look into which vulnerable groups do we need to support. And we are working with the municipalities in first defining who actually needs assistance, and then afterwards in how this assistance can be delivered by the municipality.
What about your other partners that are not governmental institutions?
The government is always our starting partner. We are not working here independently. We are working on agreement with the government. So therefore we have to find an agreement first with the government. And then we are working with a variety of stakeholders. And that is the main idea. We are supporting change processes, and we have to find a common agreement on this change. And the change has to be supported by the civil society. It has to be supported by the private sector. And to that end, we have to bring people together. For example, last year we supported the government in developing a strategy, a national strategy for people with disabilities. And we had a quite extensive stakeholder process, starting from the president, going down to the local level and to the people, to the organizations of people with disabilities, and also with the enterprises, for example, who are willing to employ people with disabilities, but don't know how to make that functioning. And that was a quite long process to bring all these people together, and now having a program which can be implemented.
You work with different types you have different types of partnerships. Yes. So could you give us some bigger explanation in how does GIS collaborate with the government institution and local stakeholders? I'm asking this because lately in this country, after the situation in the United States, many people thought that this kind of financial support is only for the civil sector or only for some media outlets, and we had some huge debate in the public sector, and nobody is mentioning the governmental institution, and that's why group of people are a little bit happy for this politics without even being aware that this money also goes to the state institutions.
Yes. That is for us the clear understanding that it is, yes, the idea and the main topics are decided in Germany usually. Germany decided, yes, we want to have functioning states on the Western Balkans, therefore we want to work with these states about the functionality of public institutions. But then as a next step, we have then to work with the partners to define what goals do we exactly want to achieve. Then we talk with the government here. Yes, you are working on digitalizing your public services, so we are actually defining in which areas we can work to work together on digitalization of the public services. So this is finding a joint agreement, and the goal is always a joint goal, and it is of the benefit for the country here. But at the same time, it is also for the benefit of Germany, because we want actually strong states as our partners. When you look at the figures in Germany, we are doing best business with countries with strong economies. Therefore, in the long run, we are interested not in cheap labor or in cheating other countries in how we are cooperating, but in the long term, our interest is to have a strong partner who can actually negotiate with us on the same level.
This is, as we mentioned, many countries here in North Macedonia. I have to ask, are you satisfied with your collaboration with country institutions, with state institutions?
Yes, in general we are satisfied. There are always difficulties, there is always bureaucracy on our side and on the other side, and sometimes the bureaucracy does not fit together, so we have to also to negotiate on our processes ourselves.
I had to ask because everything goes a little bit slower in North Macedonia than in developed countries.
I don't think so. That, I think, is a misunderstanding. I really want to make clear, if we want to have functioning change processes, we have to take our time. And that is sometimes, I think, a misunderstanding that we want to have change immediately. We are discussing, we want to have disruptive change. This is much more efficient. We stop everything. The reality is that a lot of things here in the country are functioning, but we want to make them better, and we have to improve them. And yes, there are a lot of things which are difficult, and this is what we are working on. But that is the main idea. And I have to admit, I have worked also in other regions in the world, and coming here, I realized actually the mood of the people is much worse than actually the functionality of the society.
Really? That sounds optimistic.
No, I think
really
it is
optimistic.
We are always saying this is a poor region compared to Munich or to Hamburg, but probably if you compare with more eastern parts of Europe, or also sometimes with the southern part of Europe, then actually North Macedonia or some of the Western Balkan countries are not doing that badly. This is
okay, but we really like to compare with countries like Germany and not Eastern European
you also have to
countries.
but you also have to be realistic what can be achieved. And I think it is also to get from one step to the next. And on the other side, we are seeing here middle-income countries who are having big troubles in certain areas like education, like the health system, but at the same time, these are functioning states. This is not that you have to subsidize the country, that the country is surviving. This is a functioning economy. people are in the majority paying taxes, and the state has an income which it can redistribute and work with, but it has to be improved, yes.
Let's talk about a little bit about the IPA funds, because many people believe that the IPA funds are not fully utilized and then in North Macedonia, and numbers actually show that it's not just a belief. So in your opinion, what are the challenges in accessing and implementing these funds? First of all, is GIS eligible to apply for those funds, and how do you see GIS contributing to better utilization to these funds to support the country's development goals? I'm asking this because a lot of, as I mentioned, the numbers, a lot of the funds and a lot of the money, actually, we are returning it at the end.
No, we are working a lot with funds from different sources. So we are working with the funds from the German government to start with, but then our second most important financing institution is the European Union, and also other donors, and even partner governments, where we are actually joining funding into one project. And with the IPA funds from the European Union, yes, there are certain, sometimes it's a little bit slow in the implementation process, and it can be improved, I think. And sometimes I think it would be easier for North Macedonia if they would make more use of member state organizations in the implementation. We have, for example, one large program on combating smuggling and trafficking of migrants, which is a large program led by GIZ and primarily funded by the European Union, but then also including other European member states, for example, the Italian police or the prosecutors from the Netherlands, or also the German federal police is included, and for example also the border agencies from Slovenia and Austrian government. So the idea, and that I think would make it easier for the implementation of the EU funds, not always to go for tender process with consulting organizations who are then coming for one project and afterwards leaving, but actually looking for partnership with EU member state organizations which are staying. Like GIZ, we are here for 30 years. Usually we are not just having one project which we are implementing, but then we are looking also left and right how the different projects are connected. We have, for example, one project on innovation, which is also funded by the European Union, which we then linked also to other German structures of providing specific assistance for small-scale companies here, where we were bringing then experts from this other German program, integrating them into this program, and that I think would make it much easier with the implementation of the funds.
Well, IPA funds are not only meant for governmental institutions, but also for private companies from many different sectors. Where do you see our biggest weakness in North Macedonia? Why we cannot fully implement these funds? Why are we returning those funds? What is, in your opinion, that we really have to do or change in order to fully utilize these funds? Because many people, for example, from other cities outside of Skopje, they say they are not well informed, or they are not able by themselves to fulfill all of that documentation. So what is your opinion about our weaknesses?
I think the first step, getting programs rolling, I think the first step is on the national level in the government institutions, where we are often seeing that if, for example, a new government is coming in, then the new authorities or the new leadership is then starting anew the process and not building on the process which was there before already. And this is what I'm seeing in other countries, that they are much more efficient actually building on what is already there and not stopping things which were already achieved before and then starting to prepare the TOR anew for the implementation or for the starting of the project. And the second thing is for sure, if we are going out in the country, this is what we did, for example, in this innovation project. We were extensively traveling to the region, talking with the companies directly, with the startups who want to actually get funding into their projects, and then really to explain how such a application process looks like. It's clear that people don't know the details of such an application process.
And the application process is quite complicated, if I may say.
And that I have to tell people that yes, these are public funds, and with public funds we have to be very careful. Therefore, there are certain procedures which have to be applied. They cannot be changed, but it can be communicated and they can be explained. And on the other side, also people have to sit down and read the explanations so that they know what they are actually applying for.
So I have to ask, is working with you demanding this kind of complicated documentation or
I think it is.
process?
I think our idea is actually that we are for sure a little bit also having a hand-holding approach, that it is clear that not everybody can understand how it works, but that we are actually doing that together. And that usually works quite well. And what we got as a feedback from partners, yes, with GIZ sometimes it takes some time until it starts, but when it starts, then it works quite well, and then we feel also in the right hands.
So can you share examples of how GIZ has effectively managed similar fund mechanisms in North Macedonia or maybe other countries in this Balkan region?
No, I just mentioned this large program on combating smuggling and trafficking of migrants, which is a big program with a lot of players. So there is a lot to do in the coordination of all these actors coming to the region and working with different stakeholders in each of the Western Balkan countries. One project we are currently implementing here in North Macedonia is this program EU for Economic Growth, which we are implementing with EU funds, which is supporting on the one side directly startups and innovative companies to create certain innovative products. And on the other side also supporting accelerators and business incubators to develop such projects and to work together with companies and with people who have ideas to develop their idea into the direction of business. And here we had quite very good results, as we also could bring in a lot of private investors. That this was not only grants delivered to the companies, but actually private investors from abroad and from here in the region who were then investing into the companies, and we had here quite good results. Another program we are doing at the moment in the field of state institutions is digitalization here in the Balkans. There is one program we are just starting with the EU to implement this Wi-Fi for the Western Balkans, with the idea that in each municipality of all the Western Balkan countries we will have accessible public Wi-Fi available for the citizens, which is an EU program which is also implemented in the EU member states and which is then now also brought here into the region, which we are implementing here together with the Ministry of Digital Transformation.
When we talk about digitalization, we have made some improvements, and you just reminded me yesterday, I read, some of my friends wrote on the social networks, it's the first time I took an electronic document and I feel like I'm in Germany. So when we compare...
But this is, for example, also one example. I'm not so sure if this is functioning that well in Germany. For example, for our digital project in Kosovo, we were also teaming up with Estonian institutions, because actually German example, it's a big country and it is with a very traditional administrative structure, and sometimes the example of younger countries and smaller countries are for the Western Balkans more practical, and therefore we teamed up with Estonia there. Mm-hmm.
So at some parts we can maybe say that we are one step ahead.
Yes, sometimes you are, and I think that would be also the idea, and I think it would not disturb Germany if you are leapfrogging in some cases, that you are jumping actually beyond the step of Germany, and then Germany will catch up.
Yes, but just like you said, in the smaller countries, some changes are much more easier to be done than
exactly, and that is the interesting thing with North Macedonia, I think, because North Macedonia, there are not that many citizens. Actually, if you want to get change, you have to get an agreement among less people than, for example, in Germany. So this is possible.
Mr. Oberhuber, what unique expertise and resources does GIS brings to the table that could position you as a strategic implementing partner for the government?
Yeah, I think what is important, and that I would like to take this example of the reform agenda, which I think is still a little bit underestimated, the efforts the country will have to take in the next years to actually make the reform agenda happen on the one side, and also to get the funds flowing from the European Union. Where we can help is on the one side to organize such processes. So our core job is to organize change processes. And that sounds, at the first step, it sounds, why do you need an external supporter for such a change process? It is sometimes good to have someone coming from outside to come with a broader view on what is actually going on in a certain sector, in a certain field, because the people who are involved in the sector, and that applies also to Germany in the other direction, when we are too much into our own logic, we do not see what is possible to do differently. And that is the main idea with the change process, to bring all these different actors together and then to see what is actually possible to change, what do we need, how do we have to organize a process, we have to define how this is functioning, and then we have to come with the specific expertise. We are on the one side, and I think half of our expertise we are providing is actually expertise from the country here. This is not coming from outside. This is actually the experts here who know the system, who know in which direction the change has to be organized. But then for specific topics, we are bringing experts from abroad who can then advise on a specific solution, how e-government solution for a specific topic can look like, and how this can be organized. The other thing is then also this term of capacity development, where it sounds sometimes a little bit boring. Yes, it's on the one side training people. You need to understand what you want to do differently, how you can do that. On the other side, it is also more to work together, how the organization is actually organized from the top down, and not only to look into the hierarchy, but actually to look into the process. For example, we did in one country, we looked into the services of the public institutions around childbirth. That we were then going into the hospital, and the first change was that the mothers who just have born a newborn child don't have to go out of the hospital to a certain place to register the child, but actually someone from the civil registry was coming to the person in the hospital directly with a mobile application and doing the registration there directly. And this was created in an interactive process with the people who are actually responsible for doing the registration, and on the other side also with mothers or new parents who actually know what went wrong in the past and what would be much better to change.
And when we talk about foreign expertise, we do need it because we want to be part of the European Union, so it comes naturally that we have to take the good examples and maybe
we have just last week signed a contract with a colleague from Macedonian government who was going for us to Ukraine to advise there in the field of EU approximation. I think that was environment in that case.
And at some point we will continue our EU path. We are a little bit blocked at this moment, but we never lose hope, as you know, with our previous problem. Now we have another one, but we all hope that one day, very soon, actually we will be going to European Union. We are all waiting for that moment for so long. So how do you envision GIS role in supporting our government and other stakeholders on the EU path and in driving some sustainable growth and development in our country?
I think the good thing with the EU approximation process is that you actually have a menu. The acquis communautaire is more or less a menu what the country has to do. And this is not dependent on where you are in the stage of negotiations and accession process. Yes, probably there is a blockage at the moment, but that does not block you from introducing reforms in the court system, which you anyways have to do for the EU approximation process, but which are in the end for the interest of the country. And that, I think, is something which is the most important thing to understand for the people and for the institutions here in the country. These EU reforms are not for the EU. These are for your countries, for ourselves. And this is, I'm actually working for the Germans already quite some time, but I'm an Austrian citizen, which is also part of this European approach, that I'm actually working for the Germans, but being an Austrian citizen. But I have seen how much changed Austria with the EU accession. We were already a quite advanced country, but with the EU accession, there was a lot of change to the better for the functionality of the Austrian system. And this is what I always want to make people understand. This is not just about EU funds to make available access to funds from the European Union for investing in the economy. This is for changing the functionality of the states to really deliver to the people, and to have that is probably the main change in the head of the people, where we have to work on. That sometimes we still have a little bit the Yugoslav approach. There is the state and there are the small citizens. Actually, this has to come together, and that is the main role of the EU. That this is more functioning in a joint way.
I share your opinion that we have to explain the citizens that the reforms are not for EU as much as they are important for us and for our society and for our way of life. And I would like to ask about your grade, about how far we are with the reforms.
I think, again, I have to say you are already
outside of the political problem.
No, I think we are always mentioning what there is not yet there, but there are a lot of things which have already been achieved. I think in the past there are certain steps in economic development which you have taken. You have a quite functioning FDI system where foreign direct investment can relatively easily come into the country, where we have seen also in the last 12 months a quite positive development in foreign direct investment here, which is due to a system which has been changed over the past years and decades. And that is, I think, in several areas of the government. I think where it is really necessary to do more is in the field of environment. This is also where we have to blame us as outsiders as well. I think we always focused on the Western Balkans, on conflicts, on issues in the countries, but we did not that much have a focus on environmental change, on just transition, for example. We have the most polluting power plants of whole Europe, which are actually mostly here in the region, and this is something which has to change, and North Macedonia is to a certain extent a front runner here. There is no alternative for North Macedonia to phase out coal, because your coal is not that much usable for the power plants anymore. Therefore, you need to look for alternatives, and this is something which has to happen soon. And there, I think, is more needed in the near future.
Well, I wish that our conscience in this country will start to work when it comes to environmental issues, because we are living in a very, very polluted cities here in Macedonia, and I don't see some big actions from our government trying to stop that. I will mention the devastation in Ohrid, devastation of the Matka Canyon, and it's not just the air pollution. We have really big problems, and I still can't understand why both the government and the civil society are not addressing this issue, and they are not changing enough. I want to ask you a personal question, because you've been to several countries, you've been working on many projects. So what do you consider to be your most successfully implemented project? What is your dearest project you worked on so far?
I think the project which I really like, what we are working here in North Macedonia, is our program on social inclusion. I think I mentioned already the strategy for people with disabilities, but this program is working closely with municipalities, and also with, it is not only working in North Macedonia, it's working in the whole of the Western Balkans, but always through the municipalities. And what I see is that there are really tools for the municipalities in how to deliver these services to the citizens. What is still missing, and this is what we are still working on, is that also the funding for these tools have to be sustainable. And this is not funding which can come from donors. This is funding which has to come from government institutions. Ministries of social protection, of social policy, have to provide in a stable form, and this is the responsibility of the state, have to provide funding for municipalities to deliver such services.
I'm going to mention here one successful example of your work. For example, municipality of Bitol. I was very surprised when I saw what they have done in order to be more inclusive for the person, people with disabilities. They have ramps, they have vehicles, and they mentioned you that you are the partner in implementation.
That was part of this.
When someone from Skopje sees how they are working and how they are organized, it comes as a surprise. So I really wanted to mention it as a good example of your work. So you're slowly bringing this interview to an end, and I would like to ask you about the German politics in general, because recently you had elections in Germany, and the results indicate that there will be a change. We're still waiting to see what that change will be and how the things will play out in German politics. But when do you expect the government to be formed, and do you expect changes in the policy concerning international development? Actually, that is what people here are the most interested about. Can
we are an implementing organization, so we are not making politics and policies, but we are We are sure part of that system. What I see is that there are heavy negotiations going on, and I think they are trying to tackle the big questions first, like the question of defense and the question of infrastructure, which looks like that there is now a path defined forward. And then in the negotiations we will still see some difficulties to come, but I'm quite sure that we will see a new government until Easter this spring. What concerns international cooperation, development cooperation, I think there is a certain common sense in the Federal Republic of Germany that it is in our interest to use this soft power. The Conservative Party and the Social Democrats, who actually are now negotiating the new government, they have formed this system of international cooperation. So they are to a certain extent the parents of that system, and I do not think that they will abandon that. And especially in the international sphere, Germany understands how important this partnership is and how this is in the interest of Germany to do that. Therefore, I just don't see that there is an alternative to it.
Well, thank you very much for that answer. I think it's very optimistic for our viewers, just because the latest developments in United States brought a lot of fear concerning this question, international development, and as I said, the civil sector was very much affected, but Germany is maybe one of the most important countries in the European Union, and EU is our main goal here. So for us it's very important that Germany is still here to help us in some parts. Mr. Oberhuber, thank you very much for accepting this interview and for coming to my studio. I really appreciated this conversation.
I appreciate it also very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Се надевам дека барем малку успеавме да ги приближиме ставовите, како што кажавме неколку пати, па малку и да ги побиеме оние стравови кои се наметна по промената на политиката во Соединетите Американски држави, но што се однесувам до европските земји, конкретно Германија, можеме да очекуваме дека меѓународната соработка со оваа држава и понатаму ќе продолжи, и Германија понатаму ќе продолжи да инвестира, да финансира и да соработува со Северна Македонија кога се однесува на одржливиот развој. Ви благодарам за вниманието со кое не следевте. Се гледаме повторно следната недела. Довидување.